something you would always say is like that you felt like all through the line of co-op that you're like filling in gaps, like filling a need. Like when you first started that, you're like, you know what, we need something more for performance and new media. Or, you know, that you're just like helping fill these gaps to help artists.
ATS is very, I'm very adamant about not turning anyone away for lack of funds. So we have music shows and we'll have a cover, but it'll be like a suggested donation. So what that means is that we're putting our trust into the people who are showing up and saying, you know what, we would like you to pay, and you could decide if you want to pay over that and account for the next person behind you who can't make that, or if you are that person and you want to go for free. So that's a moment of vulnerability, and I think being like candid with the people who use our space, that is the state that we're in, oftentimes leads people to be more generous than what the cover,
right.
the suggested cover is.
Right, yeah.
But there's costs that, like renting an ADA porta potty, which is the most expensive porta potty you can rent, is really fucking expensive, and those, I would rather run a space that is accessible for 3 years than run a space that's not accessible but more financially sustainable for 10 years.
Right.
Sometimes people will rent our space and sometimes people won't, and it's cool when they do, and those things help sustain us, but for the most part the baseline is just out of Pamela's pocket for the space. And
I think that's often the case for these kind of spaces. It's people who are passionate and believing in it, and they're just paying for it themselves. I mean, you and Greg probably have like the easiest deal over there, like, where it's just kind of part of what you're paying anyway, and it's just a shed in the back, and like, hey, so you're, it's all just kind of rolled into the expenses that you were already shouldering. It's not like an additional fundraising thing that you have to think about.
I was gonna say
which is nice.
There was no line.
Yeah, there was no line. It's all just a part of,
But for like openings and stuff, Greg and I we like try to provide all the like beverages and whatever, and usually by the end of the opening, it's like, but we usually break even. And we do, we finally sold some stuff. Thank you, Emma. There's the artist. So we finally made some sales, so we're super excited. We might be able to I might be able to get a taste of beer with my portion of it. It's Greg and I, and also like Catherine and I, my wife and I, will also live at the space. We live in the house, so we try to keep as many. And we also have a neighbor upstairs who lives, and we have a neighbor right next to us. So the baseline, we told everyone, this is going to be a gallery space. I hope you love art, because there's going to be openings every 6 weeks or more. Yeah. But thankfully, everyone's like super into it. Everyone's super down. But in terms of like arts and that stuff, like Greg and I will get together with the artists often, give them a couple of date options. And that's how it gets made. Like it's mostly Greg and I making sure it's working with everyone within the scope of us, like physically, and for whatever works for the artist.
And are you inundated with requests yet?
Yeah, we're very full right now. there's a lot of things happening. So we actually have a show opening this Friday. If anybody wants to come, Emily's part of it.
Yes.
So come. Yeah.
But Emily, how does it work? I mean, y'all have so many different kinds of programming going on. How do decisions get made? How does it work?
Pretty unilaterally. Tom and I just kind of...
It's like your inbox and that's it?
Yeah, like we both have access to our email address, and sometimes people will reach out to my personal social media accounts or something, or just in person will ask if they can do something. But in terms of visual art shows, I want to work really closely with the person who's with the person who's showing. And so, me being able to have a relationship with them and like collaborate with them as a curator is really the first step. And if I like, if we're on the same page with what their show is quote unquote about, then if it feels right, then we can like embark on that together. So usually people will ask, and then I'll say yes. And I really love when there have been a couple people in my life that Henry Smith, for example, is really excited about printmaking and prints all of our posters, all of our ephemera for every exhibit, rather than having a wall text that explains what you're about to see with your body. There's a pamphlet, and the pamphlet looks different every
And
time.
they're so beautiful. He does them so beautifully.
Yeah, and like that's that's under the umbrella of ATS, but that's Henry's personal practice expressing itself through the space, and me being extremely grateful that we're lucky enough to have those really beautiful specific printed objects for each show. And so it's a lot of just kind of like putting people's interests together and figuring out how all of the things that need to happen to make a show happen are at play at the same time, and those people can like meet each other.
And Sean, you're in a different boat because you have a board. You have a board and you have advisors and things like that. So tell me, how did decisions get made for
it started out very similar to how Emily and I did. We had a small group of people, and when we were doing weekly shows, it was like, hey, can I have a show? And I pull up the calendar and say, here's the day, you want to do that one? And it was that simple. There's so many time slots to fill. But as we grew and formed a nonprofit and started building a more robust curatorial calendar and thinking about fundraising and times of year and sort of intentionality of like not just like how the exhibitions butt up to one another and what that means, so you're not doing too many similar things back to back or whatever, but also thinking about it like holistically as a year-long program. Then as we formed a board, those decisions became more like bringing things to the table. Different board members will bring curatorial ideas to the board meetings, propose them, and then we vote on them. And pretty much it's mostly yes.
How many board members do you have?
There's 5 of us.
And about how many shows a year? About the same?
Right now about 5 or 6 in Colford. We've slowed down after COVID. We're trying to be
and majority rules, if 3 say yes and 2 say no?
Yeah, that rarely happens. Usually it's like,
it's unanimous?
It's pretty unanimous most of the time.
That's nice.
Sometimes it's a little rough, but usually it's pretty chill. I think we're all aligned sort of what we want the organization to be doing and we want the programs to sort of like but we're also like a working board. So like we don't have like a big board of directors. The board's not full of people with money. It's full of people who have been part of CoLab for a long time and that work as directors and contribute directly to the efforts that we decide to move forward with. So it's very like, sort of like work-oriented and egalitarian in some sense.